Okay, we are recording. Ray, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, thank you. Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm all right. I'm all right. I've just had a little kind of rant and brought you up to speed with pretty much what I do for a living aside from this before pressing record. So that's all off my chest now. And I can guarantee that the next hour is going to be about you and some marvelous records. I touched upon before we press record about how the fact that the club that I'm at had to shut for a couple of years over the pandemic. So before we sort of look way back, I just want to sort of initially touch on how you found the last sort of 2 years of lockdown and such, how you found it personally and how you found it creatively.
Well, I guess first off, personally, it's been a really important and kind of special couple of years for me, because I had a baby during the pandemic. So I'm one of those
Wonderful.
people that kind of, use the opportunity to yeah, make a child, to make a new life. And it wasn't totally planned, but it just felt like good timing.
Yeah,
I don't think that's really a possible thing with having a child. It's never going to be like the best timing, but
yeah,
so I really can't complain in terms of how my personal life changed and developed during that time. But
yeah,
obviously things in my career, in my music career, were put on hold significantly. I was trying to finish my third record, just before the pandemic started. And so in some ways we got this kind of extra time to really finish it and perfect it. But we ended up doing the last bit of recording remotely. So we did some recording with a great pianist in Birmingham, but obviously couldn't be there while it was happening. So there were a
yeah,
few things like that were kind of affected. But I think, a lot of people were affected so badly during this time that I've got off really lightly, and I'm super aware of that. But one thing is that we've got a studio in our house here. So I guess like we were kind of working from home before everybody was forced to work from home. So
yeah,
in that sense, it didn't change too much for me.
yeah.
Really lucky, really.
Lovely. Well, let's start today's playlist. And I'm going to ask you, Ray, to tell me the song that you regard as having the greatest ever intro, please.
So I chose Ponte de Area by Milton Nascimento, a song that I've only really been aware of for kind of 2 or 3 years. I was introduced to it by a collaborator, a guy called Sean O'Hagan, from the High Llamas, and he's done a lot of arranging work with Stereo Lab, etc. You seem to know of him, which is nice.
I've got a big High Llamas fan.
Oh, great! Yes, or maybe we can go into that, because Sean's an absolute genius of a man. So Sean introduced me to this song, and when I was asked to figure out the best intro, it just immediately came to mind. And I think it's had quite an impact on me in the last couple of years as a song generally. But the more you kind of listen to it and unpick how it develops and how it begins and soars into the whole thing, it's quite complex and magical.
And with that in mind, when you write, how much consideration is applied to the fact that, you just said that you like to sort of listen to it and like, insofar as like unpick it and work out where it's going, because it's not an instant intro. It's not like the Beatles going help and straight in. It's, it's a far more, there's more of a journey to it. And I just wonder, that kind of played against, I'm playing devil's advocate here, played against the ever increasing speed of people's thumbs to find the next thing, and to, and producers saying, chop that off of there, start with this, and hook them. Like, how do you approach writing and essentially the intro? Like, how much do you consider a Spotify playlist or radio, and how much do you have to sort of offset that with, well, look, this is art and this is what I'm creating? Do you know where I'm going with the question here, Ray? I'll never quite frame it right.
I think you do. I've heard you say that a couple of times now, listening to your podcast, and I think every time it's great. It's fine. It's a good question. Yeah, totally. It's really interesting for me as a musician, I don't know how interesting it is for, you know, the everyday person listening to the radio. I guess they just want to hear the music, and that's where my brain goes sometimes. It's like, I've made this song, I really care about it, love it, and I'd love people to experience it. And if the kind of 1 minute intro is going to mean that they turn it off because they get totally bored, then it doesn't seem quite worth it if I want them to kind of experience that. So I've been through all sorts of different thought processes about this. In the past, I was kind of encouraged by my record label and people to make those kind of, you know, don't bore us, get to the chorus, 3-minute 10 pop wonders. And there's something really kind of brilliant about them, and it takes a lot of skill as well to structure them and form them. But in recent times, particularly this album that I've been making in the last couple of years, I've really understood the beauty of a great intro and a great outro as well, and how that can make an album exist so nicely as a whole thing, not just a single or a song. But yeah, it's a constant push and pull, isn't it? I think where I've landed with it is, and my ideal situation is, make the record, make the whole album, including those exciting interludes and moments of you know, truth, I guess, and then make some seriously good radio edits. Because like, then, you know, it's the best of both worlds. Like, the people that want to experience the record as a whole get to, and then maybe someone new discovers the music on the radio because you've chopped the front off. To me, that's not too terrible. Perfect
answer. Track 2, Ray, I'm going to take you back and ask you please to tell me the first song that you remember hearing that had an emotional impact on you, please.
This one was really hard, and I wonder if most people on your podcast find this hard.
Everyone says the intro is the hard one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, doing this whole thing has been, you know, it's taken me kind of like a week to.
Oh, that's great.
Because it's really got me thinking, and I guess, my brain has been otherwise engaged in the last kind of 8 months with a baby. So it's really nice to kind of go back and just like think about which song was it that had that impact on me, right? You know, really try and be honest and pinpoint it. So some of my choices are incredibly embarrassing because
that's part of this podcast. You're in a safe place, don't worry.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. So this one felt difficult because of the emotional thing, and I was thinking about, you know, my parents and the songs that my mum would sing to me when I was a baby, and I've got little memories of that. But the significant moment was when my best mate came over from Australia and played me Hide and Seek by Imogen Heap. And I was 14, I think that's what I put it down to. And before that, I was listening to like McFly and, you know, kind of kids music, basically. No offense to McFly, but that kind of like pop kids music. And so it was the first time I think I heard something that was mature and had this kind of emotional yearning pull in it. And just listening back to it recently it's been quite interesting and emotional again, I guess.
Absolutely. She's wonderful. Have you ever heard the track that she done with, I think it was Urban Species, called Blanket?
No, I haven't.
Oh, Ray, honestly, I think it was before, because she was in a band called Foo for a while as well. I think that's how you pronounce it. I saw them one of their early shows at a tiny little venue in Chelmsford, and her voice was just incredible. But if you get the chance, Urban Species, Blanket, and Imogen sings it. Oh wow! Kind of come out, I imagine, sort of maybe early 90s, around the kind of trip hop kind of thing that was unfolding then. And it's beautiful. Yeah, what a voice. So tell me the emotion. What was it?
It was independence maybe coming through, like connecting with my own teenage angst. It's funny because at the time, like Courtney, my mate, she's a bit older and came over from Australia, and she was cutting my hair in my bedroom, like giving me a cooler haircut, and playing me this song, and I was like, transforming into an adult almost in that very moment. And I think it's something to do with the vocoder. I know that that's maybe quite basic, but it does have a kind of depth to it that means that the vocal kind of comes through in a warmer, kind of more impactful way.
Yeah.
And that is the first time I'd heard a vocal effect like that. And so that was interesting, to hear a female vocal that was a bit like I guess to me, it was a bit scuzzy,
yeah,
a bit kind of electronic, and I wasn't thinking about music in terms of a career or anything that I would do at that point. It was just cool. I just thought it was just a bit cool.
So up until then, Ray, like, you said you're listening to, as most young teenagers do, listening to pop music. What about like home? Like, two questions: where was home, and how musical was home?
So home was Blackpool, and wonderful home, wonderful family, and had a really great childhood there. And it was musical, and I sometimes in the past I've answered this question and really like annoyed my mum and dad by being like, no, they just rubbish. But my dad's been playing clarinet and saxophone all of his life, but he tells this quite funny story about it, because he's been having lessons, or he had lessons throughout my whole childhood, every week. But the guy giving him the lessons would kind of say to him when he got round there, oh, can you just paint that bit of the skating board? And so he'd end up doing jobs for him when he was there and not actually learn the instrument.
Brilliant.
So he's not really progressed that well as a saxophonist. He won't mind me saying that. So,
but he's great at DIY now, though.
He's really good at DIY. He really is. And yeah, a lot of music around, and my mum played a bit of piano, but they're not professional musicians. They had very, very good normal jobs. My dad was a firefighter. My mum worked in the NHS. But it was always on. The radio was always on really loud. Like that was important, I think.
Okay. The song that reminds you of your time at school, please, right?
So I chose Gold Lion by Yeahs, because this whole process really triggered some memories, and my brother is 3.5 years older than me, and he introduced me to this song, and it was one of the first ones I kind of like sit and play on piano that wasn't the classical scales that I was kind of not really into learning, and he introduced it to me, and then I ended up kind of forming a little band with some kids at school, and it was the first kind of collaborative band experience that I'd had, and we played this song. So I went round to someone's house and did like a bit of a band practice, and I just
most importantly, Ray, what was the band called?
We didn't even have a name because it was one band practice. And you know what? I didn't like it. I didn't like being part of a group of
really
players, which makes me sound awful and narcissistic. But I think I just wanted to do it alone.
Yeah.
What do you have any experiences of that when you were
playing? I was in bands throughout the whole of the 90s, and I don't know. Like I was always the one in the band. And I think every band needs it. You need the one guy that seems to sort of want it a bit more than all the others, and he's organised and driven, and like will be the one that will go, look, I've booked band practice like for this day. I'll come and pick you all up, and like and I was always that guy. Yeah, and I think ultimately from that moment onwards, I've always worked for myself. I don't think I want to be around people anymore. So yeah, I kind of know what you mean, because I was kind of not in a narcissistic way, but I always kind of just thought, well, I've got this idea, but I did need a band around me to facilitate it. And I was always happy to sit in the background. But yeah, I did always just think, yeah, maybe. I've never really thought about it. God, was I
It's
an
not that
arsehole?
nice. It's not that nice. Maybe you're an arsehole. I think it's just maybe you're a control freak, like me.
Probably.
It's not very nice having to rely on people to like practice enough and make sure that they're gonna turn up on time and want it as much as you do. And I think that's what stressed me out as well. Like I could control my own lapse rehearsal schedule. I knew I could do just enough to get myself over the line, but you can't. What if they turn up and they're shit that day? It's quite a scary thing. So yeah, the band life for me was very short-lived, and we didn't even make a name. So
But I mean, just to sort of touch on the years and Karen O, like what an incredible voice, what an incredible front person, and what a band.
Oh my God. I saw them live at Leeds Festival in, I think it was 2009. It was my first festival. And yeah, again, just as a female vocal and an eye-opening experience of just like, oh, you can be like that. You can perform like that. You can kind of, dress in that way and be that creative. It was exactly what I needed to hear and see at that time, because a lot of other kind of female singers in my school or around me were kind of quite perfect and emanating like Beyonce or some of the big kind of amazing powerful soul vocals, and I just needed some like Karen O influence around me.
Absolutely. And talking about school, like how was that as how was that as an experience? Did you enjoy school?
I think I did. Like, I know that's not the coolest answer, but I went to a pretty kind of like, it wasn't rough, but it was just a really, really kind of normal school in Blackpool. And I think I kind of navigated it as well as I could in terms of kind of, balancing that act of being a nerd, but kind of still managing to keep in with people that, could potentially beat me up if I didn't. It's that kind of
totally
a fine line to tread. And I did really want to do well. I was kind of pretty I was quite teacher's pet. But I found that if I did sport and music and kind of kept myself busy doing that, then I could kind of get away with wearing trainers or something. That was always the most important thing, wasn't it? Like, as long as you don't have to wear your school shoes, you can wear black trainers, then that's all that matters.
Oh, that's the epicenter of punk rock. I just got to wear my trainers. Oh, it's wonderful.
Nothing else matters.
Oh, amazing. Could just picture you lacing up your trainers, listening to the Rage Against the Machine, just thinking, fuck you, wearing my fucking trainers.
But here's my A-star homework.
Oh, great. I mean, you said that, and it's really interesting the way you phrased it, navigated my way through school. And it does feel like you do have to sort of navigate your way through it and try and, and balance that. Certainly if you're a creative type and you really like to, and you've found things like the yeahs and Imogen Heap, and all of a sudden this is like, all right, this is kind of where I want to go with this. Like, and you do have to navigate your way through, because there's people that are not going to understand why Karen O's moving like that, dancing like that, singing like that. And it's, it's trying to keep all of them things kind of balanced to sort of navigate your way through. So around this point of being academic and you mentioned sport and stuff, but the music, was that something that you'd settled on was going to be a career choice?
No, at school I was still very much undecided, slightly under encouraged. I think I remember having a meeting where you're kind of talking about sixth form and beyond, future careers and stuff. And I think I mentioned that music might be an option because I played piano and hadn't really done much performing, and the pathway was recommended to me as going into music therapy, because which I think is a really nice idea, and I'm still really interested in that, but that was the way it was framed, like the performance side is totally out of the question. It's like go into a kind of a more social care role, and so at that high school I was still just wondering what I might do.
It's so fucked up, isn't it? Like that, we was doing them careers meetings as well, where you tick box stuff and then they go, right, so this is what you should do. Mine said I should join the army, and it's like, I was like, huh? Like, and I told them I wanted to be in a band, and they were like, well, from what you said on here, we think the military might be a good way forward. I was like, that's the last thing I ever wanted to do. And I remember them saying to me, well, if you can't be in a band, what else do you want to do? And I said, stuntman. I don't know why. It just
Great.
That's what I thought. I thought, what else would be fun? Stuntman. And they were like, no. But nothing was like, it's so crazy that schools. I hope that the balance is starting to find its way through now, and that when people aren't necessarily academic, but they are really, really gifted in the arts, that should be really encouraged and pushed. But it is strange, my children are like, they've just left, like both just left school, and it felt exactly the same, that it was academic.
Really?
If it wasn't academia or sport, the creative side of things just certainly wasn't encouraged. And it's like, and then you have to kind of navigate parenting and kind of, because they're freaking out about getting these exam results, and like my wife would be like, well, look, you need to do this, you need to do this, and I'm also thinking, oh, it don't really matter if don't worry about it, you'll be all right. You're like, it's just an exam, don't worry about it, just do what you want to do, be happy. And like, but obviously you can't just go, oh fuck it, don't worry about it, because I'm like, well, just, I've done all right, you make your own way through. And
exactly,
but you just kind of getting that.
Question for you there, for parent to parent now, it's a new thing for me. How do you encourage your creative, or kind of how do you encourage creativity in your kids without pushing it on them so much that they reject it? Because I'm thinking my daughter Marla is now around us making music all the time, but is it going to be so annoying to her when she gets to like 17 that she's like, I never want to hear another song again?
I've been really kind of like, because my wife is just somebody that sort of just listens to, and that sounds really derogatory, but just sort of listens to music, and it isn't well, how should I frame it? Isn't a nerd like me for music. I'm a total anorak, and
right.
And so I didn't want to spoil music for my children, so I kind of let them. And there's two things that sort of struck me, and one is, and I've mentioned it on this podcast before, how certain songs are woven into the fabric, and just how I discovered that was maybe 8 years ago. I was driving and the kids were in the back of the car, and I had like absolute 80s on or something like that. And are you familiar with Aztec Camera, Somewhere in My Heart?
I don't think so. Can you sing me a little bit of the chorus?
I'm not. It's Somewhere in My Heart. Yeah, somewhere in my heart there is a star that shines for you. Silver splits the blue. Love will see you through. Oh, when you hear it, you'll go, of course, it's a huge pop song from the 80s. It's a beautiful song. And it clearly hasn't woven its way into the fabric of song, because you ain't heard it.
No, but I'm terrible with I'm not an anorak basically, but carry on.
But and it's also got one of the greatest ever intros. But and literally it was just on, and my kids were singing it, and I just turned it down. I went, how do you know this song? And like,
TikTok.
fast forward another couple of years, and it would have been TikTok, yeah. And they're like, I don't know, just know it. And I just think that's crazy that some songs just sort of find. And the other time, I'm a huge Smiths fan, and I kind of, well, I've had two things with the Smiths, and obviously it's quite a strange one to navigate around Morrissey now, because he's he's a bit of a kind of odd. I guess he was always odd, but he said some pretty odd things of recent, and it's very hard to be a lover of his music and not have to kind of address what he's been saying. But go back a few years, and I was just sitting there and watching some music stuff on YouTube with my youngest, and I was like, right, this is the Smiths. I said, this is good, this is. And I put on this video, and it was like that. It was I think it was like one of the last sort of Smith shows, and there's all of these people with quiffs in the crowd, with like throwing flowers at Morrissey and Johnny, and they're all steaming on the stage and just like literally just grabbing him and loving him, and obviously, and I was like, she was like, why are they doing that? I said, it's a bit like One Direction but different. And I was trying to explain the difference in like kind of pop fandom of being obsessed with like a pop star, but this is almost like a different. These are grown men doing this. It's quite odd. But and then like my wife came in and was like, "Oh, what are you doing? Are you trying to tell my kids about the Smiths?" And I was like, "Yes, sorry." But fast forward to about a year ago, and my youngest was walking to college, and I was just walking to the end of the road with her, and she just went, "Do you prefer There Is a Light That Never Goes Out or This Charming Man?" Right, I could have cried. It's pathetic. I could have cried. I just felt like my work is done. Like...
that is the dream. Wow. There you go. So I get, that's perfect. You kind of slowly introduced it. You kind of didn't put any pressure on it. Showed them a few, made some One Direction comparisons, and then before you know it, they're listening off their own back. I love it.
See, the thing is, right? See, you and your husband are cool people. You know, you're cool muso types, right? So, you know, but with this in mind, right? You need to remember, you're never going to be cool to your kids.
No,
because I've realised this, and I'm certainly not cool. But the way that this happened was, my eldest is 19, and she turned 18 during lockdown, and obviously I've got my club, and I said, "You're old enough to go clubbing now," and I said, "You can come to my club," and she went, "Dad, do you honestly think the first time I ever go clubbing, I want my dad to be DJing?" And I just thought, that's a really good point. I just thought, I just cast my mind back to thinking, when I first went clubbing, if my dad was fucking DJing, that would have just been horrible. So
sounds good to me. To be honest, like, my dad has been at all of my kind of teenage experiences like that, because they happened as I was making music, kind of, you know, doing gigs and being at the bar afterwards, and I know you're correct about parents not being cool, and I don't think I'm ever going to be cool to our girl, but I do think my dad's pretty cool. I do.
Wicked.
Maybe it's now that I'm kind of, you know, I'm 29, I've got my own child, I'm looking back on it, but I've never been embarrassed by my parents ever. They've never embarrassed me once, and I think that's something that I will always, you know, be really grateful for. They've just been very cool in social situations, like let my friends smoke weed in the back garden with us, you know, just like not been annoying.
Lovely. Right, let's get back onto today's playlist, Ray. Tell me the first song you remember buying from a record shop, please.
Okay, so this goes back way back, and it's a snapshot in my memory. It's a moment, and I was walking out of Woolworths on, I can't remember the name in Blackpool, but it's like right on the seafront in Blackpool. It's obviously not there anymore, and I bought a Boy's Own album, and I think I couldn't remember which one it was, because musically it didn't have an impact on me. I don't think, maybe it did, but it was more about the, you know, the physical purchase and walking out, and I immediately dropped it on the floor outside Woolworths, and it smashed. And I was just devastated because I just purchased this. I don't know with what money. I think maybe Christmas money. I think I would have been about 6 years old. So it's, yeah, where did I get this money from? But it was devastating to me. And I think maybe that was one of the pillars in my life where I've kind of learned to look after things.
Yeah.
Since that, you know, I really love looking after my things. And I particularly kind of things that mean a lot to me, and I think it maybe comes from immediately breaking my Boyzone album as I walked out of us.
I just think, is there anything? I mean, one of the most tragic things you will ever see is a kid dropping an ice cream, and like, it's so sad.
A Boyzone CD.
Or a Boyzone CD. Oh dear! Like, yeah. I mean, I remember, like, literally, like, if a record fell out of its sleeve and just cracked on the floor, the heartbreak, and that will still carry with me today. I think if I broke a record now, I'd still be equally as devastated. So I mean, there was 2 choices for this one, am I right?
Yeah, there was a second choice that was kind of later, when I was probably about 15, 16, and I would go into HMV in Blackpool as well. And I was just kind of, you know, I guess I could go into town on my own, again, be a bit independent. And I picked out PJ Harvey's Dry album purely because of the cover. And that was quite interesting, just thinking back on it. I think the visual side of the arts and music has been a really big thing for me. I made quite a lot of judgments and like introductions to things based on what the artwork looks like, or you know, what the artist looks like themselves. So it was the wet hair and the flicking the hair back, and it was just such a cool look, that I bought it just off the back of that.
Oh really? You've not actually heard Polly's music before?
Nothing. Yeah, never heard any PJ Harvey.
I mean, you done well there, didn't you?
I did. Yeah, I was really quite happy with that.
I mean, is that something that you think is lost a little bit in the digital age now? The how iconic. I mean, if I think of that record sleeve, it's just. I only ever picture that record sleeve on vinyl. I don't picture that on a cassette or on Spotify. Like, do you think that is something that is a little lost in music now? Like the impact and the power of a record sleeve.
Certainly, you have to think about the teeny weeny square that's on everybody's devices. And yeah, when you come to make that artwork, it's worth considering it. But then on the flip side, you look at the platforms that we use, like Instagram and I guess TikTok now as a whole visual platform. It's so much about what things look like. Probably more so than ever. That you know, the way you present yourself as an artist is really vital. But and that can be a little bit negative as well. I think that there's so much onus on that. But you totally I love album artwork, and I love the liner notes and the inside sleeve artwork, and that is so kind of forgotten about, that even when it comes to making it, it's like the last thing you do. You're just like, quickly like throw together the inside artwork. And I think as a true fan, or maybe not even a true fan, but like a really kind of enthusiastic fan, that's amazing, isn't it? To look through and read the lyrics and see who was part of the making of it, and who designed the artwork, even. Like, that's really important. So it is a bit sad that that's kind of not as important as it used to be.
Let's move things forward a little bit to track 5, and that's the song that soundtracked your year's clubbing, please, Rae.
So I didn't do that much clubbing, I think because of my years gigging and not going to uni. Things kind of went quite serious and professional for me from the age of like 18, 19. But I did go out a lot with my brother and his friends when I was about 16 onwards. But you know, I'd put on my like mini dress and high heels and go out in Blackpool. And it was kind of like proper indie clubs.
Yeah.
There's a place called Bootleg Social now, which is a venue in Blackpool, but it used to be called Jenks.
Yeah.
And it's down these like really steep stairs, and you'd fall down them every time. And it was just like, yeah, indie music club night type thing. And I don't think the FEAR by Ian Brown was on really like on a Friday night in there, but it just, for me, like that is just the whole world of sound of that time. And that, yeah, I was introduced to all of that.
Yeah.
Kind of, you know, Stone Roses, Oasis, like that was kind of my like 15, 16, yeah, my soundtrack to those years.
Is that when you kind of felt like you found your tribe?
I guess they weren't my tribe because they were my brother's mates.
Yeah, of course.
In
Yeah,
terms
sorry,
of who
yeah.
I was hanging out with. So, but I was always like in awe of them because they were older than me and cooler than me, and I loved that they'd let me go out with them and you know, kind of be part of this thing that they had going on. So I did, musically I found like I felt like I found my tribe. I was like, yeah, this is where I belong. But I never really settled into a kind of friendship group in the same way that they did. So
Yeah.
I was always a bit jealous of that. Yeah.
It's a great record, FEAR, as well.
It is. I think
So,
it made me feel clever, you know, it made me feel like
what, you can spell fear?
that moment, that light bulb moment, I'm like, whoa, this is genius.
I love it. Right, okay, Ray, I'm going to take you home for track 6. Could you please tell me a favourite song from an artist from your home county, please?
I chose Lancashire Blues by Gracie Fields, and I only really came across this a couple of years ago, but it really came at a perfect time making this third album of mine and thinking a lot about Blackpool. And she was from Rochdale, and I don't know how well you know this tune.
I listened to it when I got the listen of it. I hadn't heard it before.
Right. But yeah, she sings in this, you know, Lancashire accent, and she's talked about Rochdale and kind of lists various like clogs and things from Lancashire, and I just love that she's got that, like she sings with that accent, and so it had quite an impact on me. And yeah, I just think she's really, really cool.
Who else has kind of come from that area? I'm just trying to sort of rack my brains for artists that have come from that neck of the woods.
I think Graham Nash.
Of course.
I think he's maybe from Blackpool. I might be wrong on that. But I'm not. You know, I'm not a massive. I can't talk.
Yeah. Sure.
Really.
Sure.
I'm sure you could recommend some tunes for me to go and listen to.
Like absolutely. So, do you still live up there, or have you sort of moved? Are you down in the Big Smoke now?
I'm in London. Yeah, I moved here when I was about 21. So yeah, like eight years ago. But I still have basically all my family in Blackpool, and I've recently been making videos and shooting artwork there. And yeah, I spend a lot of time in Blackpool still.
I'm always interested. The reason I set this podcast up, and initially it had a very sort of, my idea for it was going to be far different to this. It was the fact that it's called Off the Beat and Track. I wanted to literally do little series, and each one would be on a certain location and an artist from that location. And I was going to start in my hometown of Essex. And my first guest was, who's a very good friend of mine. He's an artist called Scroobius Pip. And he still lives around the corner. And he was asked all the time, like, so, well, are you going to move to London? And he's like, nah, I'm all right. Like, and other bands from my area that you know, horrors and things like that, they're straight to London, and you know, that's where it seems to happen. I just wonder, was the draw to London purely work for you, Ray?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I didn't want to move to London at all, and I think I'm a bit jealous of that with Scroobius Pip and I guess yourself in a way that you kind of in Essex there's a close proximity to London. You can kind of
Yeah, I mean, in fairness,
at
we
least
are only literally 25 minutes on a train.
I know that's it. Like you can just pop in and pop back out, and you can probably get slightly more for your money in terms of property as well.
Oh, definitely.
but but yeah, like I think the train, it's expensive and 3 hours or more, and like I lived in Blackpool. Yeah, I signed my first deal at 19, lived there till I was 21, and it was just getting really difficult with like paying for train fares all the time, staying in hotels every time I was in London.
Yeah.
I ultimately met my husband Friars working together, but he said recently that it was really hard. We were friends for years before we got together, and we worked together a lot. And he said it's really hard to hang out with me because I was always on a train back up to Blackpool.
Yeah.
I was either in transit or kind of staying in a weird hotel on the other side of the city where someone had put me. It was just a really strange life. And so ultimately it was just more practical to settle down here. And I do really feel weird about it. I imagine myself living in Manchester. I was like, oh, that's, I could do Manchester.
Yeah.
But everyone spoke about selling out. If you go to London, you sell out.
Oh, really? That was a pressure.
Oh my God, it was awful. It was like I felt like I'd committed a crime and like, oh, you've changed because you've moved to the south. And I still have that a bit. Like I still feel a little bit kind of out of my comfort zone living in North London. But one thing I say to myself is at least I'm close to Euston. I can just go and get on a train whenever I want.
Absolutely.
But it is a thing, totally a thing.
It's crazy when you think like how small a country we are. The fact that there is that in existence of like, well, what you moved down south, like you've sold out. It's crazy, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and the way that people talk about, like, the way that Northerners talk about Southerners, and vice versa, it's pretty awful. Shouldn't be allowed.
Okay, right, Ray. For your last song, you get to be, I think they're called influencers nowadays, or tastemaker, as I like to refer. A song that you think many people may not know that you would like them to hear, please.
So I had two choices. I couldn't decide. So I'll be quick about it. The first one was I Say Rae, I Love You by Yamasuki Singers.
Yeah.
And we had that play at our very small little wedding. So it's quite like a meaningful one to me. And yeah, when I first heard it, I just couldn't believe it was just so weird, and didn't really know what I was hearing. And every time I mention it to people, they don't seem to know. But was that something that you?
No, I'd never heard it.
Yes.
And I heard it today, and yeah, it's beautiful. Like, how did you discover that?
Ben, my husband, played it to me.
Yeah.
And I don't know where he got it from, but apparently the dude is Daft Punk's dad.
Shut up! Really?
Apparently, it's the guy from Daft Punk. Is it Thomas? How do you say the name? Bangalter?
I'll let you say it.
Okay. Well, people can Wikipedia this. But yeah, apparently it's the Daft Punk guy's dad.
Wow.
So yeah, interesting little album.
Yeah.
That I really love.
And I think I could only find the one album. I couldn't find anything else.
Yeah, it's not on Apple Music either. I think it's all like quite it's just on Spotify, that one record, which is quite nice. I like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other one, Ray?
The other one was All Flowers in Time Bend Towards the Sun, with Jeff Buckley and Elizabeth Fraser. And I heard Joe Wiley play it on the radio years ago, so I thought maybe it is relatively well known, but then can't find it anywhere other than YouTube. So I wondered, and it sounds to me like it's a demo, like they're just kind of working it out together, and that's what I love about it.
There was so much respect for each other there between them two artists, from what I've heard. Like, I think he was obsessed with Liz Fraser, wasn't he? And I mean, if you've got a heaven sent voice, which Jeff Buckley did, you then get to sing with Liz Fraser. I mean, come on. I mean, that's literally sent from heavens, that music, isn't it?
You can hear that in the recording, that they're like kind of bouncing off each other, and there's something kind of almost sensual about it, even though it doesn't sound like remotely sexy as a song together, but you can hear that they're just loving it and just playing about, basically.
Absolutely. Well, unfortunately, like that track won't be on there because it's not on Spotify, but all the other songs, Ray, that we've spoken about today, we put on a Spotify playlist to accompany this chat, so people can go and explore all the songs that we've had a natter about today, and obviously go and check out your music. So with that in mind, your music, 2022 is now fastly gathering speed, and hopefully going to continue in a happier, more connected and positive space than maybe the last 2 years have been. With that in mind, Ray, what is Ray looking forward to this year, and what's going to be happening professionally?
So yeah, personally, I guess I'm in this kind of new exciting phase of being a parent and understanding that stuff, and kind of, not understanding some of it, a lot of it, and just kind of figuring out like how to do work life and all of that. But it's fun, and like, just watching her grow and change every day. I just feel like, incredibly lucky that I get to do that now. So that's kind of personal life, I guess, in a nutshell. And then professional stuff. I've got an album coming out basically later in the year, and you always think it's kind of exciting and the best thing you've made so far, but I do think that, and I feel good about it, and going to play some festivals this summer, and it's all kind of, it feels like kind of a bit normal again, which is weird. I hope that everything goes ahead and we all stay safe doing it all, but
Absolutely. And Ray, if people want to keep up to speed with everything that's going to be happening, where's the best place to keep up to speed with you?
Well, I'm always on Instagram, like the rest of the world. It's like just constantly on Instagram. So that's, I even reply to messages. I'm just a total addict. And I guess like I've got like a mailing list and all that stuff. But I'm even on TikTok now, which is kind of a questionable subject. But
Look at you down with the kids.
I know. Who do I think I am? Can I lure you over to the dark side?
Well, Ray, if it's cool with you, we'll tag you on the Instagram post when this comes out, so people can go and find you if they haven't already. Honestly, mate, I've had an absolutely lovely time. It's been delightful talking records with you, mate. And I wish you all the best for the record and the summer festivals, and all the best in your lovely little life with your new baby. So thanks so much, Ray.
Thank you. So tips. Take care. Thanks again. Bye.
Right, I'll just press stop on here.